and it's their intrinsic
nature. This food basically robs.
Sound, feasible, sound. Everybody, thanks for watching. Now, for anyone who happens to be Muslim watching this video, if you watch this video in its entirety, I can almost guarantee 100%, if you are real with yourself, by the end of this video, you will no longer be Muslim. Now, I expect to get thumbs down. I expect people to leave negative comments and to not like this video simply because they are Muslim. Because, they was born into Islam, because they went to prison and took their shahada, whatever reason. I expect you to support your religion and stick by your religion because, that's what you are. You feel like, that's your team, you got to stick up for it. But regardless of the fact, if that's your decision by the end of this video, then if you ignore the facts in this video, then you are really only hurting yourself with your decision and your ego. So I know people are not going to like it. I don't want nobody to get offended by this information. It's not information that I made up. I always provide my sources. It's information that is out there that is not being put together and put out to the people, and that's what this video is about. So I think that anybody who is real with themselves, who can, really look in the mirror and say, damn, this makes sense, this doesn't, will really get what this video is about. And it's this whole faith thing. Either you're going to have faith or you're going to have common sense. You cannot have both, because if you have faith, then you forfeit common sense, and you have to remember that. So for those of you who have faith, who stick to your faith, you cannot argue with someone who has facts. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. So now, if you are here on YouTube, scouring through videos, looking through videos, then that already tells me, you as a Christian or a Muslim or a Hebrew, that you are still looking for validation. You are still looking for the truth. So obviously whatever religion you are claiming it not in full, not being fully convinced that your religion is the truth. Now, you may not, tell the truth about that. You may not say that in public or around your religious friends, but deep down, you being here is telling me that you are still looking for validation. You are still looking for the truth. Or else, if you were truly a believer in your religion, you wouldn't be here, because honestly, it goes against your religion. So the simple fact that you are here says it. Even though you won't admit it, it tells me you are here for a reason, and you are looking for the truth just like the rest of us. Now, again, either you're going to accept the facts or you're going to accept faith, but you cannot accept both. And that's something that you really have to realize. Now, I had already put out a video on Islam, and to me, that video was enough to really change anybody's mind. But this video really is going to go into the core of Islam and really get into what it's really about, and what that inner core of the leaders of Islam really worship, and what they are really about. And the crazy thing is, it's been in your face this whole time. You see it every day, you see it all the time, but for some reason people can't connect the dots, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So now let's go look at the history of Islam. I went into this in the first video, I'm going to go into it a little bit here. But when you look at the history of Islam, let's go back. Islam is a fairly new religion. When you start going back to BC, there is no Islam, there is no Muslims. Now, the whole thing is this: you had a war between the Persians, the Arabs, and Rome. This war basically lasted from 92 BCE all the way to the 7th century AD. We're talking about, over 600 years of fighting between, these factions. So now the war ended in a status quo ante bellum, which basically means that all parties, all sides agreed to basically go back to the way things was before the war. This was the agreement. This is what they agreed upon. So now the thing is, soon as this war ends, you get basically the Arab invasion. You get Islam. And we know that Islam is using the prophets of Rome, the prophets of the Jews and the Christians. So the question you have to ask yourself is this: why, after such a long war, after, when you look at the power, the might of Rome at that time, why would they risk, this doctrine, coming out with this doctrine, using the prophets of Rome? Why would they risk that? Why would they do that and come out with this doctrine right after this war? And why would Rome allow them to do so? So now you got to ask yourself, you had these Arabs and Persians, you had this long war that was going on, over 600 years of battle, fighting, for them to just stop and say, we're going to basically go back to the way things was before the war started. It doesn't make sense for them to just say, forget everybody who died, forget everybody who got injured, hundreds of years of war, forget about it. We're just going to go back to the way things was. They obviously was fighting for something. And if you remember around this time, the Persians and the Arabs was on the move. They was conquering a lot, which makes more sense for this, whole status quo antebellum, or this whole war, really. But the thing is, it ended with them basically saying, we're going to go back to the way things was. Now, it doesn't make sense unless there was some kind of deal struck. And that's basically what the facts is telling us, that, it wasn't that they just said, forget about it, we're going to go back to the way things was. A deal was struck. They came together, made some kind of agreement that would allow them to come up, to basically use this doctrine to control the Arab people. Now, the reason why I say this is because, it's not a coincidence, everything that happened right after this war ended. You got to pay attention and look. You had, this whole war ends right in the early 7th century. We're talking 630s, 640s, and around that time. So you got to think, right after this war, you get the death of Muhammad, supposedly. You get the end of the Persian Empire. All this stuff is taking place right after this status quo antebellum. Death of Muhammad, end of the Persian Empire, the rise of the Arab Empire and Islam. You get Abdul Malik going into Syria and conquering the Byzantines there in Syria, basically converting the people into Islam, changing their language from Syriac and Aramaic to Arabic, enforcing Islam. So the Quran was supposed to be revealed to Muhammad in Arabic. And what happens is whenever he gets these revelations, he goes out to the public and he, recites the new surah to the people, to the public. And he had, one of his Sahabas, companions, or one of the scribes basically write down these verses. So the problem with that is this: during the life of Muhammad, when he had supposed to existed, and right after that, there was no Arabic. There was no written Arabic language. You have a bunch of people who believe that everybody was walking around speaking Arabic during this time, and that it was just a spoken language, and nobody wrote nothing down because we don't have no writing in Arabic during that time. You can't find that. Nobody can find a Quran that's written in Arabic during the time of the Prophet Muhammad. One do not exist. Now, the thing is, you have the Birmingham Quran. I believe it is found in London. They supposedly just had it in a museum for a long time. They come out with this whole Birmingham Quran that's supposed to be written before Muhammad, before the life of Muhammad, which is why a lot of Arab scholars denounce the whole thing. And, it's dated before the life of Muhammad, but you got Arab scholars who say that, you need to test the ink. And instead of testing the paper, the skin that is written on, because the skin hide that is written on is supposed to be dated back to that time, but they believe the ink is newer. And the whole issue with that is there was no color. It's red ink that's written inside of that Quran. There was no colors used in the Quran during that time. And that Quran, the Birmingham Quran, is supposed to be in order and the Quran was not put in order, the way it is today during that time. So, of course, the Arab scholars are not going to like it because it basically turns Islam upside down. If you have a Quran that's basically written before Muhammad, where in the Quran we know today, everything starts with Muhammad. So that whole thing is suspect. But when you look at the earliest Qurans that we have, almost all of them is written in Kufic script. You can't find one that's in Arabic. So there is no Arabic language. Now that alone should get most sane people to, sit back and, question Islam. So now let's think about this. God Almighty, who created the heavens, earth, the whole universe, 6 days. 6 days created everything, rested on the seventh day. But takes 23 years to give a man a message about a doctrine or a religion that he wants him to basically put out. 23 years. Then on top of that, he allows Muhammad to basically die as soon as he finished giving him these revelations. Then allows another 60 to 70 years to pass before we get Islam. It doesn't fit. Then on top of that whole thing, already had allowed hundreds of years for Judaism and Christianity to dominate before he finally says, okay, let's give people Islam. I'm going to take another 23 years to give Muhammad the message. It doesn't fit. That's why I tell people, no disrespect. There's a lot of Muslims who I do respect and, have Muslim friends, but Muslim family members. But the whole thing is, if you were born into this religion, if you was, tricked into this religion due to lack of knowledge, then you have to really go back. And like I said, if you're watching this video, then you obviously have some doubts if you are a Muslim, but you got to start to really use common sense and look at certain things. Some things just don't fit. It don't make sense. God, come on. He should be able to, and the message is in Muhammad. But 23 years, because you don't realize what's going on, it has to do with numerology and the people who is behind this religion that I'm going to get into later on. But anyway, you have Abdul Malik go into Syria and force Arabic on the people. And as I pointed this out in the previous video that I did on Islam, there's a reason that he did that. The word Quran itself is a Christian Judeo meaning. Quran does not mean recite like most Muslims believe it does. It means Pentateuch reader. If you take it back to its earliest language, the language that they spoke during that time, which was Syriac and Aramaic, it means Pentateuch reader. Now it says here, some say Quran means recite. Not true. The word Quran means Pentateuch reader when you go where the word originally came from, Syriac. Here it says, in Syriac, the word Quran is written Quran, meaning Pentateuch reader. Now, the Pentateuch is basically the 5 books of Moses. It is Jewish religion. Quran also means lectionary. Take it back to Aramaic, Syriac, same thing. It means lectionary. Now here's telling you, the book being a Syro-Aramaic lectionary with hymns and biblical abstracts created for use in Christian services. Now a lectionary is basically like the sermon that the deacon prepared for church. Now if you go and look at the Syriac Orthodox Church in Antioch, that church I was showing you earlier, if you look at the duties of the deacons, they have 6 duties. If you look at the 4th duty, it says Qurayo. It means reader. Qurayo sounds like Quran to me. Reader. This is where this stuff is coming from. I don't know how much more proof I need to show you people, but I got a lot more. This is the problem. When people get this kind of information, it's just something just clicks in their head that, it's all bullshit. Like, you can't just go through the research yourself and see that this is true. So when you find out this is true, what is your action? People's action to that is, so what? I want to continue to be deceived. And it's ego. It's not that, this is wrong, or it's ego. It's people don't want to feel stupid. They don't want to feel like they've been following and bowing down. It's so many things you got to do, when you are Muslim. I know I followed the Islamic faith for a long time. I considered myself to be a Muslim for a few years when I was trying to figure this whole thing out. Because when I found out Christianity wasn't right, of course, naturally I went to Islam and I found out that was wrong as well. So I understand, making wudu and so many rituals, 5 times praying, and it's a lot you have to do. And to find out that you are being duped the whole time, praying to the moon and the sun and to Saturn, as I pointed out in the last video. I mean, it's tough for people to accept that, which is why I got a lot of backlash about the first video. A lot of people left negative comments, but as you can see from a lot of people liked the video more than disliked it, and the people who disliked it didn't even really watch the whole video and didn't let the information sink in. They simply didn't like it because they are Muslim. And as I said, if that's the choice you're going to make, who are you hurting but yourself? You're not hurting nobody but you. And at the end of this video, when you see what this stuff is about and what's in here, what's really going on, and how it's been in front of your face all this time, but you can never piece it together, you're going to feel some type of way. But, don't get upset with me because I'm just putting the information out. I have so many people who keep sweating me about this video. Put some more videos about Islam, more Islam, because people can kind of see it. They can't put their finger on what's going on. So that's what this video is really about. But it's something that even if you're not Muslim, you're going to want to get this information. And I think some of you probably are going to have figured this stuff out, or when you see certain things, you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's what that's about. So, let's keep going. So now, as I said, Rome created this religion. They created Islam to control the Arabs, to basically get the Arabs to do their dirty work, the work that they could not do themselves. They seen how powerful the Arabs was and what they could accomplish, putting up a war that lasts hundreds of years against the mightiest empire on the planet, arguably Rome. That was obviously impressive, and they probably couldn't sustain that war any longer. So you got to understand, like I said, a deal was struck. They used Islam, they used the Arabics to do their dirty work. So now, what else happened right after, the war ended? The whole status quo antebellum, we get Islam. What happened after that? You get the whole Arab slave trade.